A new book by Debbie and Erwin Unger, U-N-G-E-R, a biography of General George Marshall, makes important criticisms of the general and of his role in World War II. And I thought it'd be interesting to explore those in a history video. Marshall, as you know, has been credited, in Churchill's words, for being the organizer of victory, the man who took the United States from having virtually no army at all to having 10.5 million men under arms and millions of them in combat. And he's been widely credited for being the magician who trained and equipped raw recruits into an effective army and geared up American industrial production to meet not just the demands of the U.S. Army, but of all the Allied forces throughout the world. But now this new book by the Ungers levels criticisms at Marshall, and I think it's worth exploring some of them. They say that in particular, the performance of American troops in Europe between the D-Day invasion and the fall of Berlin indicated important deficiencies, both in their training, their attitude, their competence, and their motivation. The performance of American infantry in eastern France, the book writes, often disappointed their leaders. Lieutenant Colonel William Simpson of the 2nd Division's 10th Infantry acknowledged in a report that the soldiers he observed had been afflicted with excessive caution. Quote, "We lost time because of the lack of boldness and aggressiveness on the part of our scouts. The troops," he added, "were too ready to withdraw if they encountered resistance. The enemy, too, remarked on the weaknesses of American troops under fire. The Americans," observed Captain Walter Schaefer-Kenort with the German 9th Panzer, "operated by the book. If you responded by doing something not in the book, they panicked. It usually took them 3 days after an attack to prepare for the next one. It took a ridiculously long time for them to get into Germany." Then the other criticism that's leveled against Marshall is the replacement policies and the manpower policies of the American Army. Marshall had set the arbitrary limit at the start of the war of a 90-division American Army. Now, that sounds like a lot today, but Germany had 340 divisions, and 90 seemed a relatively small number. And when combat casualties thinned out the ranks, as they unfortunately did fairly rapidly, about 1.5 million casualties in the war, his replacement policies came under very strong fire, because rather than create new divisions and send them into combat together, having trained them together and then sending them in together, he sent the replacements in piecemeal to fill each individual vacancy in each of the divisions. And the Ungers write, "Some of the critics once again pointed directly at the training process as the cause of the deficiencies. The writer and cultural critic Paul Fussell, then a 20-year-old rifle platoon lieutenant deployed along the western German border, disparaged the infantry training he had received at Fort Benning, where Marshall's fire and movement doctrine had been promoted. The tactic had been drilled into his fellow rookie junior officers for 6 months, and, quote, "we all did grasp the idea," he later wrote, quote, "but it had one signal defect, namely the impossibility of knowing where your enemy flank is. If you get up and go looking for it, you'll be killed." Nor were the training difficulties limited to foot soldiers. The historian Stephen Ambrose quotes a nettled tank commander at the Battle of Bulge, saying, "I spent long hours in the tank turret when I was literally showing men how to feed bullets into a gun. Could they shoot straight? They couldn't even hold the gun right." Another tanker wrote of the 3-man crew for his light tank that they were all 18 years old and that only one of them had ever actually driven a car. And the flawed replacement policy, once more on the German border, as in the Mediterranean, contributed appreciably to deplorable results. One American replacement soldier assigned to his company confessed he had never fired directly at the enemy. In his new battalion, nobody had time to teach you anything. You just had to pick it up for yourself. Private Red Thompson, a scorned replacement, learned to take care of himself, but noted, "I knew I was just cannon fodder." A company commander serving with Patton complained to his superiors that it was foolish to carry out operations like those at Metz in eastern France, with depleted units filled with raw replacements. Quote, "I knew such units were not trained or hardened. All the leaders were lost, exposing themselves at the wrong time. The new men seemed to lose all sense of reasoning. They left their rifles, their flamethrowers, their satchel charges, and whatnot lying right there where I was. I was disgusted." Now, of course, the rebuttal rings in my mind, and maybe in yours, yeah, we won. And how bad could they possibly have been? By the way, the British also heap scorn on the competence of the American troops. And the Ungers would answer that it was due to the overwhelming superiority in numbers, materiel, resources, air power, artillery power, and a whole lot of stuff. But when it came down to small unit infantry tactics, they say that the American foot soldier was seriously deficient, and they lay the blame at the doorstep of General George Marshall. Now, I know that a lot of veterans of World War II are probably watching this video, and I'm honored to have you watch it, and I bow to your superior wisdom about this. And I would be interested in your comments about it. So if you would write to the comments page at dickmorris.com, I would be grateful, and I certainly would look forward to reading them. But I thought that it was worthwhile to bring this point of view to your attention. If you're interested in it, get a hold of this book. It also, by the way, raises doubts on Marshall's ability as a strategist, saying he was much more of a logician in terms of logistics, not in terms of wartime strategy. So dig into it and let me know what you think. Thanks.